Hi, Professor Schneider. My name is Emma Pei. I'm going to be presenting about the article titled "Who Needs Budgets" from the Harvard Business Review. And I was hoping to have a more professional setup, but here in Panama City, I don't have access to the same resources that I did in Cedar City, so I'm actually presenting from my home today. So that's the best that I have, unfortunately. I just want to jump right in because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, and you can read more. I've made some very thorough notes, so you can look at those. There are a lot of arguments made against budgets, and basically in this article, the whole premise is modern companies reject centralization, inflexible planning, and command and control. So why did they cling to a process that reinforces those things? And he argues that in the modern day, with all the technologies and advancements and the way that budgets are used in business, it's the cons outweigh the pros, and we should completely do away with budgets and replace them with some alternatives, which I'll talk to as well. And he also talks about companies who are doing this and being successful, so I'll get into all of that. So he had a lot of really good arguments. I chose some of the most compelling arguments to talk about. Number one, he says that budgets have mutated into a fixed performance contract, which stifles innovation and free thinking. So basically, originally, budgets were made to communicate. There were a lot of different reasons why they were used. Now, the way that they're used is to control all the levels of the organization, and it disempowers the front line and encourages management to hide problems rather than addressing them. Additionally, management, since their incentives are based on the budget, they have an incentive to hide the truth or misrepresent the truth to benefit themselves. And when there is a problem, they don't address it. So it's also expensive and time consuming, and we're underutilizing modern technology that could make the process smoother. So budgeting consumes up to 30% of management's time. And also, according to a study, for every $1 billion in revenue, 25,000 person days are consumed by performance measurement processes. And that was from a study that studied a lot of different global companies. The other thing is that budgets can lead to a breakdown in corporate ethics because it places, especially when the budget is related to incentives. In WorldCom, for example, they had a very rigid budget, and it ended up leading to people having an incentive to misrepresent the truth, which created a culture of dishonesty in the company. And so budgets actually, according to the author, had something to do with what happened at WorldCom as well. So, excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. There are some alternatives to budgets that are being implemented by different companies, and they've been very successful. So one of these options is, rather than adopting fixed annual targets, you can evaluate performance compared to peers and against world-class benchmarks. So there are actually firms that they prepare and provide benchmarks specific to your industry that are going to be more effective for your team to base their incentives and their goals on than something that was chosen within the industry from higher management. Also, you can you can set longer-term goals based on target ranges for key performance indicators. So rather than having one specific number that you're aiming towards, you have a target range, and you're basing it on some key performance indicators. I'd like to go into those, but I'm running out of time. The other thing that it talked a lot about in the article is rolling forecasts, which is something that a lot of companies are having success with. It's more effective than a budget because you can adapt it along the way. There's no penalties for missing targets, and it always looks 5 to 8 months in advance, and then so there's no deadline. It's not a sprint, it's to the finish. So there are some success stories of this as well. A lot of organizations that have gone beyond budgeting, they can be found in a variety of countries, industries, and cultures. Companies who abandon budgets have saved 95% of the time they used on budgeting and forecasting. which saves them money as well. So the biggest one they talked about was Svenska Handelsbanken, and I probably pronounced that wrong, but since abandoning their budgeting in 1970s, they're outperforming their Scandinavian rivals in measures such as return on equity, total shareholder return, earnings per share, cost to income ratio, customer satisfaction, more. And it's actually one of the world's most cost efficient banks. The cost to income ratio is 45%, where many other banks are above 60%. And there's other companies as well. UBS they haven't completely done away with budgets, but they've combined budgets with other analyses and forecasting methods and things like that, and they've been very successful. So in conclusion, there's a quote from Jan Wallander, and I'm sure that that's wrong. He was the former CEO of Handelsbanken who was responsible for decentralizing operations. And he said, either a budget will prove roughly right and then it will be trite, or it will be disastrously wrong, and in that case it will be dangerous. So the article makes a good point for why we should stop using budgets. I agree that there are other methods that companies should be implementing. I also think that they ignored the other purposes of budgets and mainly focused on budgets used as a control method, but it's also used for communication and other things like that. So it was a great article, and thank you for your time.